And hello, everyone. I'm Rob Smith, your guest host this weekend for the weekend shift. And, if you're new here at Sepia, we have a lot of information. All the Power Hour archives, all the weekend shifts, everything's recorded. And then, um, uh, and then, every day is recorded. And so, one of the things you can do is also go back to not only, long green bar days and weeks and stuff like that to see what we were talking about. Um, you can also go back to nice juicy hours like we had, on Friday. So today, what we're gonna do, we're gonna get through a lot of stuff. We're gonna get through a lot of stuff, and the good thing is, it's live, so you can get your questions and all that kind of stuff. Someday maybe we'll do. I used to do something. Good morning in Vegas. Um, what we used to do every once in a while was research with Rob, and that's when I do the weekend research live. Now that can take a while because usually I'm rifling through things pretty quick because I know what I'm looking for. But that can help too. But today we're going to do a lot of macro stuff, and you're welcome. It looks like we've got a good crowd today. All right, so what we're going to do today is first we'll take a look at what's going on, and then we're going to go into the macro scans, and I'll show you some more things that I scan for, as we're looking for things. And but let's start off with, you know, you'll hear me talk about, that the strat will customize itself to who you are, right? A lot of other chats that I'm in, they're like, tell us your trades. And I'm like, well, might not be suitable for you. I'm like, that's why you want to learn the strat and say, look, you don't have to. I don't have to tell you what trades we're doing. I'm like, you should know based on the strat. All right, Canada in the house. All right, looks like we got a great group here. So here, so we've known for a long time this SPY's been stuck in this range for a long time, right? And now, you'll hear me say, like on Fridays or at the end of the day, what's closest to the next two, right? So now we're a lot closer to two on our way back up here, where a lot of these guys that don't know the strat were like, oh, it's overbought. This is stupid. And I'm like, you're telling me this is overbought? You're out of your mind, right? So here, what had happened is when we look at multiple time frames, right? And I know all of you have been in other places where they don't do that. They rarely go over a daily chart, right? And so what you can see here is one of the things we look for here. Here's our weekly SPY, right? So if we go to the daily, we know it was a chop shop in here. It's been really choppy in here, right? Every day down, up, down, up, down, up, right? And so in that case, there's a lot of day trading where we're going after the strength and weakness of different sectors and different stocks because SPY's doing nothing back and forth, right? However, once we look at multiple time frames, depending on who you are, good morning, Julie, is that here, if you go to the weekly, we're always looking for the outside bar here, right? That's a broadening formation. It is. They tried to take out the highs, tried to take out the lows, and then tried to take out the lows and came back through. The 3222, right? So now you can see the higher high and the lower low. So once you had that reversal here, even though it backs off, right? And if you're trying to trade the common, that might get a little rough, right? However, the magnitude was to take this out. 407.45. Did it do that? Certainly did. It certainly did, right? And so one of the things you can do is once you see this thing go green here, right, or reclaim the monthly green, right, go after the options up here. Because of, what we've seen, dirt cheap, right? And if they kick in, they kick in hard. And if the good thing is they kicked in on a Friday, right? So those things were dirt cheap. Here's your Momo hammer, which is a hammer, which is a 2 up, right? And so if you didn't trade all week, Friday was the day. That was it. If you didn't trade till Friday, you were fine. Otherwise, you got the chop shoppage in here. Once they started gunning them, it was strange to be discussing this with somebody who's never heard of it, and that might be you. But they were fighting me on this, and I was like, look, there's something called window dressing. It's technically illegal, but it happens. And so what that means is, when things occur matters. I talk about that all the time. And, this is Friday, end of the quarter, right? Now, let's say that you are a fund manager, got your butt kicked last year, right? But you're having a great year if you're long NASDAQ stocks, right? And so what are you going to do here if you go to the Qs? QQQ, gone. Momo Hams, gone this thing. You got your outside month. But so what that means is that if I have to report to my clients that, what did we do in the first quarter, right? That I want these things to go out on the highs, right? So if we've been long all quarter, I don't want this thing to back off. I want this thing to go out on the highs, and then I'm going to send out my quarterly statement tomorrow, yesterday afternoon. Like, here we go. That's called window dressing. It's like, make your positions look as good as possible, because then you got a whole nother quarter to deal with it, even if you're wrong at the end of the day. So, and Shanna, good morning. All right. Thank me privately every day. I want to thank you personally. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate your knowledge, passion, and selflessness. The Strat has changed my life. I can't thank you enough. And glad you're feeling better. Well, that's great to hear, Shanna, and that's what keeps me going. Sometimes even I get burned out after, years and years on the headset, but that's the thing that keeps me going, helping people's lives and doing that and hearing good things, So thank you very much, and I'm glad to hear it. So on the NASDAQ, so now you got your outside month there, right? We've been looking for this lower low and this higher high. So when people say it's overbought, I'm like, you're out of your mind. There's your 3-2 continuation. Here's your 2-2, and didn't make it easy. They don't always make it easy. You just got to wait for it. What? Triangle that. And they'll take it up. So Q's going out near the highs of the month. If we go to the diamonds, and we'll get to the macro and all that kind of stuff real quick, but much closer. The diamond's been a little weaker, but they're still closer to 2 and up on the month, and you still got some room to take this out. The outside weak, the poke down, and still coming through. It just ran out of time, so we're still looking to take out 336.12 here in the Dow Jones. And so, one of the good things about that is that, breaking down your universe. You don't have to watch everything, but the good thing about like Dow Jones is only 30 stocks in there, right? And so you can look at the 30 stocks versus the Dow itself and say, okay, if we're going to take this out, who going to be, right? And you can go through those 30 and say, okay, here's the ones that have magnitude, here's the ones that have full time frame continuity, here's the ones that don't. And then you can not only do the diamonds, but then you can go into the stocks who are actually going to do it and be like, it's going to be Apple, it's going to be whoever it's going to be, right? Yeah, Chris, we're live. Oh, hold on, make sure Chris gets in here, and I'll record. Okay, so then we go to the small cappers, and a little bit different story here. A little bit, because look at that monthly. How are you going to take that out? Oof. And you got these 3 weeks in here, so they were underperforming, and we could expect that because of because of the banks has been a problem, right? And so the regional banks are going to be part of the small cappers, so that's going to keep them down a little bit. So you're not going to have a simultaneous break anytime soon of the 4 broader averages. The other 3 possibly, but these guys got some acreage to get out of here, right? And so we'll be aware of that. And so, because, especially for people that trade futures, that, you hear me talk about this a lot too, is that, some people, I just trade ES and SPX or whatever it is. I'm like, well, that you want to watch all 4 and say, okay, are they all going at the same time as a simultaneous break in the futures? Or am I trading SPX when it's underperforming and the NASDAQ's blasting off? Why am I not trading NQ? All that kind of stuff. And that breaks it down to only 4, right? And, you'll hear me talk about a lot of internals. And say, you can always go into the guts of it, yet making it a little simpler and saying, well, if I'm just going to trade the futures, all I got to do is watch the 4 top futures. That's it. Like, are they all going? Or, is somebody's handily outperforming, somebody handily underperforming, and stuff like that. And Rudy, why you never watch global trading times on your charts, especially when London markets open to overlap our markets? Well, the thing is, you can break this down to as nutty levels as you can. For me, just watching as much as I can, I will touch on aftermarket stuff, especially when I talk about the gappers, where we've been overnight and stuff like that. But because I'm watching so much, just like you need to narrow down a universe, so do I. And so I just keep it on the cash session because I got to narrow it down. Otherwise, I'm never going to sleep. And we want to try and get into crypto and all that kind of stuff, which is going to be a little bit different. Um, just because you got to sleep sometime, and you got to have, they don't close, right? And so the thing about equities is at least you have that break where you have the market's close. You don't have access to the market, right? Doesn't mean you don't trade anything else, but at least you have a timeout. All right, now we got a timeout. Now we can regroup here. What's going on, right? When you're trading everything else, I mean, you could do this till the cows come home, Rudy. So good morning. Good morning. For SPX, what do you recommend watching it with again? Well, you can watch the, if you're going to watch the SPX, you can watch the SPY and the ES, all three of those. But then you want to watch it versus the Russell, the Dow, and the NASDAQ. That's your top four, right? And, you can get some help there because, as I was saying about the small cappers, we know that we have regional banks in there. We, what's in there. We know with the NASDAQ, that's going to be tech, and you can watch XLK and SMH and what are they all doing and all the big boys, right? That'll help you, right? And with SPX and SPY or whatever it is, yes, that's going to be a hodgepodge of everything, right? that's going to be everything. And so that's, when we're watching all the internals. So you can take it down to whatever levels you want. It's just that, we try and make it as easy as possible at first, get you profitable, make you stop losing, first of all. When I first got on the headset, that's the first thing I said to people. I'm going to teach you how not to lose. And they're like, what? I'm like, yep, that's a big part of this game, not losing, right? And then also knowing how to maximize your gains when things are still working, right? Because I had this discussion on recently, I forgot where it was, but it was like, I think it was Power Hour, when somebody said, nobody ever went broke taking a profit. I'm like, oh, yes, they did. I'm like, oh, yes, they did. I'm like, do you pay for this office? Yep. How much you paying for that? Yeah. Do you commute to this office? Yeah. How much that cost you? Well, but I'm up $25. That's green. Okay. Is that your cell phone over there? Yeah. How much that cost you? By the way, your wife called. Baby's hungry and the dog needs food. And maybe pick up dinner on the way home. But I'm profitable. Okay. And Ron, do you always look for a 3 candle or gap before you get in a play? Not necessarily, because the 3 might not have formed yet. And we'll get into that. So it might not have formed yet, but it might be on the way to form, right? So we want to watch the combination of, no, don't apologize. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Because, and especially if you're just going to trade the SPX or SPY or whatever it is, you got to watch the internals. And that's what you'll hear me talk about during the day. Good morning, during the day. Be like, oh, it looks like it's breaking out to the upside. I'm like, really? Then how come all these other sectors are going to the lows? It's not happening, right? Because Monday is a new quarter, is it prudent to just watch? Pretty much, the thing is that we have a lot of things that are closer to 2 and up on the month. So they could come out gangbusters. If we get a bunch of 2s on the month right out the chute, they could get aggressive. So we don't have to just watch, but, we've seen, and if you've ever read my article about algorithmic trading and stuff like that, is like, what we've seen was like in pandemic, April was a monster. The new quarter was a monster. It's like everybody's like, it's the end of the world. I'm like, is it? Boom. And then as soon as this thing took off, anything that was still green on the year after this, gone. Tesla's, all that kind of stuff. You're welcome, shit. To get dressed up? Yeah. I almost did. I was almost going to put on the camera, and I'm like, man, showering before 10 a.m. on Saturday was like, all right, we'll just do that set. So, okay, on that note, and a lot of good questions, a lot of good questions, and that's why we're here. So let's take a look here. Well, there's a lot of things that, most traders don't look at anything over a daily chart. That's a big mistake. I'm still struggling with my entries. Could you walk me through one like I'm a 6-year-old? Well, the thing is, um, there's levels of probability, as far as simultaneous breaks, understanding how to gauge your magnitude. I can teach you all that, especially like power hours and stuff like that. So, anything to twos is an entry. Um, it's a matter of, the level of probability why you would take it, right? And that's why you'll hear me during the day call off a lot of trades. I'm like, maybe it goes, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, right? And then you'll hear me say def, def. So I want to show you something here. And when we talk about simultaneous breaks, that could be by time, or by sector. And TC2000 is a scan, and I'll get to that in a second. But if you go to like almost anything on Friday, it was a 2-up. Almost everything. That's a simultaneous break. This market's not going down, right? So if you had to just wait until Friday, that was it. The market's going to trade in the direction of the most twos, and failed twos go in threes, and things with time frame continuity. Okay, so let's take a look here on the TC2000 scan real quick, just for some dailies. And so this is some of the things that I'll look for during the day, where, like I said, I'm going to call off a lot of trades, and then there'll be times when I know exactly what's going to happen. Exactly what's going to happen. And there's a lot of ways to go about it, too. So I'll go to the daily there. Daily here. And there's also a lot of ways to play, too, in saying that, oftentimes if we already hit magnitude, I might say, there's no way this market's going down, but I don't know how high it's going to go. And that's where you can have people putting on, bull put spreads, stuff like that, and I don't want to confuse, newer folks if that's not you. Scan, yeah. So 1 second here. Okay, so if we sort by volume, how many things were taken out Thursday's lows on Friday, and who was it? Not much. Okay, so bloodbath. MU had the earnings, and that was down a little bit, so that was your sacrificial lamb. But this is a who's who of nobodies. Nah, who's taking out Thursday's highs on Friday? Here we go. Tesla's, Apple, Amazon, Intel, Nvidia. You think this market's going down? You're out of your mind. No way. All right. And so that's what we'll be looking for, on the macros, on the monthlies, the weeklies, the dailies. And so that's why, I'll get back to Strat Attack show that when we come into a Tuesday, I want to, I want to see what they did on Monday, and do they come back and do it again on Tuesday, or were they wrong and get trapped? And that's where they hear the turnaround Tuesday. Well, that can happen in the second period of any time. That's why we'll say let them open. We'll see what they want to do in the first hour. Then do they want to continue to do that in the second hour, or are they going to counter that? We see what they're going to do in the first week then of the month. Then do they counter that the second week, or do they continue to do that? And so that's the series that we're looking at constantly. And when is it safe to play a green 3, green 2 continuation, since the 3 is the top of the broadening formation? It's just got to stay above that green 3, because what that means is that the rejection when it went green on the 3 by taking out the previous low and then coming all the way back up, that's still happening. But you got to make sure that's happening, because once you're dealing with a 3, then you can get destroyed if it goes back through the 3. And that's where you'll hear me talk about, traders that make a little bit, and then give it all back and then some. They're messing with 3s and getting killed, right? Like in here, the 3-3-3 weakers and Qs. Guys getting destroyed in there. Destroyed. How long after the bell rings should you wait to day trade? That's up to you. Some people are just stone cold ninjas and go after it. Because I'm talking to a larger audience, I got to slow it down and be like, what's the damn hurry here? If something's really going to move, it's going to continue for a while. So usually I say wait the first hour, at least a half an hour, to see what's going on. So if there's something discernibly going on, I'll tell you. And so, we haven't had that in a while with this range. But there'll be times when, let's say, the market gaps down significantly, whatever, it starts rallying back, where you'll hear me say anybody taking out yesterday's highs, right? Go after those, right? And why? Because we're always getting in also not only using time frame continuity of what it means, right? We're also getting in the mindset of the losing trader and taking them out. And what I mean by that is that if the market gaps down and you're short something and your stock doesn't go and the market starts rallying back and takes out yesterday's highs, we're going to stop you out big time. And the longer you wait on that stop, the worse it's going to get, right? So if you're lucky, those guys jump ship fast and then trigger more people. So I've heard people using Fibonacci's with the Strat. What is your take on this? I wouldn't do it. Nope, not me. But I also will tell people if something works for you, by all means keep doing it. As you continue to integrate the Strat into your stuff, that stuff eventually goes away, and be like, something that's not really helping me. So, but if it's successful, by all means keep doing it. Just keep integrating more and more Strat into it. So the algos most often change on the hour. Not necessarily, but they do, and you can see it. So how is this not known within the trading community? I don't know. It's, if you go into a non-Strat chat room, it's like going back into the Stone Age. And it's hard. I mean, if you knew good morning, if you knew what I had to go through just to get this pound through people's heads, I thought everybody was going to grab this right away and run with it. And it's like, it's taken me over a decade to pound this into people's heads. But oh boy, how they want to talk about their moving averages and their levels and all this kind of stuff, man. All this kind of stuff. I was like, all right. Greater than the top of the three. Yes, Aaron. Yep. Because that rejection is still happening. So let's say if we here, that 3-2 down in the pandemics, as long as that was below here, things were going to get killed, right? And then they triangle them all out, and then there'll be the shorter time frames that can counter that. But yep, 3-2, and it can't be very powerful. You just got to be, you just got to stay on it, man. You can't get back into that 3, otherwise you're going to get 3'd, and that hurts. Okay. Is the 15-minute good enough for day trading, or should I go too lower? Marlon, it's up to you. The 30-60s can be fine. It can be boring, but the 30-60s are fine, and then you can look for the 15-5s that will trigger them, right? Then go into the guts a little bit and say, okay, well, if this 5er triggers the 15er, that's going to trigger the 30 that triggers the 60, right? Ankle bone connected to shin bone, so you can just watch that. And also for newer folks that are newer to the Strat, that, for learning, because we want to always, it's very repetitive. You can watch something that's really active. You don't have to trade it, but you can watch a 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 15, and just watch it all play out, as well as saying things that you're seeing out loud. That helps, because another problem traders get is getting into their own heads. So when you trade or you're watching something, say it out loud. What are you seeing here, right? Does this make any sense, right? I am selling this because I need the money. Wrong answer. I am buying this because it looks good. Wrong answer. I'm buying this because it's a 2-1-2 reversal rev strat that will trigger this week, that will trigger this, and it's good as long as it's above that, right? Make sense to yourself. And that's one of the things when I tell people that trading should be at least a 2-person job, right? And because if 2 people completely agree on the criteria, one does the execution and one does the analysis, right? If you're trying to do analysis that's not Strat and you're trying to execute at the same time, we're going to destroy you. you're going to go back into your head. I'm getting hungry. It's not doing anything. I'm just going to sell it. Wrong answer. It's still good. It's still good. So if you had a little birdie on your shoulder, or Rob, as I like to say, is once you learn the strat, I become the world's greatest assistant, right? Could you walk how you pick a candidate off your scan list? Yeah, well, we're going to get to that in just a second. So ideally, what we want is to see a concentration of signals in either everything or a certain sector. That tells us when you hear me say, what are they doing? Right? They as people with a hell of a lot more money than we have. What are they doing? Right? Are they buying every oil stock under the sun? They are. Are we going to join them? We are. Right? So we ideally look for a higher concentration where a common problem for people is they go through charts all weekend and say, here's my two best ideas. No, you don't tell them, they tell us. And be like, okay, well, if one of your best ideas is, I don't know, AMD, you'd want to look at SMH, the Qs, all the other things in the SMH, all the other semiconductors to see if they're all lining up the same way, right? Why would they just buy AMD and not buy Intel and LRCX or whatever, right? They would, right? If they're really serious about it, right? Or they're very serious about just AMD. That could be, but they'd have to show that. How do you know if a 212 won't turn into a 122? Jamie, that's why we're using multiple time frames. What is everything else telling us, right? Why would it do that? It would be the question, right? And that's another problem for people is not using multiple time frame analysis. That's a big problem, right? And that's why, you'll see almost anybody on Twitter or anywhere else you go, they rarely talk about even a weekly chart. Like we're talking about yearlies and quarterlies today. Like these guys don't even look over a daily chart. It looks like it's a double bottom on the 2-minute. Like, what? What? Uh, so if algos change on the hour, is it best time frame to keep stops? Yeah, so that's why we call it the flip, bottom of the hour. So we know what they just did the last hour. The question is that machine still on? Are they still doing what they want to do? Are they done? Right? Also, you got the European close on the bottom of the hour, stuff like that. So it's surprising how much meat you can get on the 3060. You just got to wait for them to set up. When things are running 2-2 continuation, what time frame is best to stay in the trade so that the exit isn't premature? You can walk it up the bottom of the twos. And does the strat work with futures? Yes. And if so, which time frames are best? Yeah, works on anything that trades. And you must have gotten here late because I just did a full spiel on the future. But like I said, you can be on 30s and 60s, but if it's grinding, you might have to go down to a 5er to get in. So it's not always a matter of what's the best time frame. It's a matter of what's going on, right? Because there'll be grinder days where you're not going to get on a 30-60. You're going to have to go down to a 5er if you want to get in at all. Trade 2 hours after the opening. What should I look for? We want to look for, how many, like I said, when I showed you the scans up there, how many, how many, how many things are, 2 and up or 2 and down, and like I just said, is there a concentration of any sector? Right? So that's what we're looking for. Do we have a concentration? What are they doing? Are they buying oil stocks? Are they buying everything? Are they buying tech stocks? What are they doing? Right? So we've known, for the first quarter anyway, to get to the end of the quarter, that it's been tech and it's been crypto. That's what they've been doing, and that's why we've got had that window dressing in those tech stocks. They just jammed them. So we're gonna take these babies out on the highs. And that's where, if you're new to the strat too, almost everything's also a Momo hammer, a 2-2 continuation, right? And so what a Momo hammer means is it's a 2-up hammer where some candlestick guys will be like, it's a hanging man. I'm like, is it? Is it? And so what you have here is anybody who tried to short this coming up in here, right? They got trapped, right? They got a little taste of it, thinking, oh, no, it's going to roll back over. Is it? Then it comes up here. Then you match that up with the shorts and the real buyers who are going to take this thing up to the highs. That's when a mobile hammer works. That's what it looks like. It should just go and not come back. If I enter on the hourly, should I go to the 15 to enter and monitor the trade in the 15? You can. It also depends on how much evidence do you have that it can continue to work, right? And how much acreage do you have? So let's say it's a pretty big winner. You can stay in the 60s and 30s and just keep walking it up, especially if you've got more magnitude on your longer term stuff. So that's another problem for people is understanding magnitude, right? How far can we expect this thing to go? Most people have no idea how to do that. And that's why you'll see a common problem is, I got out too early because they don't understand the magnitude. Where's it going? Up there. You sure? Yes. Yes, I am. I'm sorry, the volume. I don't, because I can't quantify it. There can always be more volume, and because the same guys will say it's a blow off top because of all the volume will be the same guys that say it's a real breakout because there's all the volume. So, yeah, I don't know how to quantify that. So, it's more of a liquidity than the volume itself for me. Is it liquid enough? Some people like to trade the illiquids and be like, because if I'm right, this thing's really going to go because there's no liquidity. So when you're wrong, you want as much liquidity as possible. When you're right, you want illiquidity. Dangle that carrot way up there. Extend out hours on or off if I just day trade SPY. You could do both, really. If it's off, if you're on toss, if it's off, then the 60 updates at the bottom of the hour. If it's on, then it updates at the top of the hour. Should I just take profit or buy at least 2 weeks out or a month out? It depends on what's going on, and how much premium and what's going on, what you're doing. So, hammer, shooter, hammer, strat related, and if so, how do you trade it? Yeah, because all that is a 2-2 reversal. And the thing about it is you have your magnitude built in, and that's why people like the 3-2-2s because the magnitude's built in. It's going to take out the other side of the 3. And with the hammer counters shooter and shooter counters hammer, the magnitude is to take out the hammer or the shooter that started it off. Because then the second 2 bars become an outside bar of the first bar. So your magnitude's built in. Okay, I've been trying to wait for a daily candle breakout of inside candle to take trades, but I see that stocks still run regardless. Well, Shelby, it's like I said, it's multiple time frame analysis. It's shorter term magnitude where when you're seeing an inside bar getting taken out, it might also be the top of a shorter term broadening formation inside of that. And that's why when you look at all the time frames, is this, did it just run from the bottom of this inside bar to the top and have a shorter term broadening formation? Is there a significant difference between actual signal and a reversal? Yeah, well, reversal just means you do have a reversal. An actual signal can be a 2-2 directional. It can be the 3-2. It doesn't have to be. But the reversal usually helps better with magnitude. If you want to swing trade, you can look for the monthlies, weeklies. I'm good with that. But, what we're going to do, we got to get to the scans. We do power hours where we can get all this kind of stuff. A lot of good questions. We just got a lot to go through here on the scans because I want to do the macro and make sure you guys can see all this. So, please join us for another power hour. All right. Okay. So, let's take a look at big boy charts. SPY broadening formation, sure. Here's this monthly. The higher highs and the lower lows. We got to get out of here in the macro basis. We also just did the 3, 2, 2, 2, and there's your smaller broadening formation in there. Question is, are we going to start gunning here and go 2, 2 on the monther? What is a good way to notice exhaustion and look for shorts? I'm having a hard time seeing the shorts. The longs are easier. Ronnie, that's a matter of time. So when we come in on Monday, now you can have time frame continuity back to the downside, right? So you want to watch that continuity. When do things occur, right? When is this occurring? Am I still green on the other time frames? That means I'm still got some buyers in there. I don't know. But once I can get a reversal and change the continuity, then you get my attention. All right. But let's get to the macro stuff here. Like I said, join us for the power hours, and a lot of good questions. So SPY on the year. How are you not going to be an inside year? And this is going to be the first inside year potentially. Obviously, we got a lot of time going. 2003. Yep. Does that suck? It does. Hold on. And if you go to the Facebook group, they got a lot more scans. And if anybody else in here has the scans, put them in there for TC. So, because mine are kind of okay, but because I'm usually scanning with all the other things too. So, you got an inside year, and you are nowhere near taking that out. And so, one of the things, power hour is every Monday, 1 hour after the close. And I believe we're going to be doing a Thursday resurrection special. And so the reason I do that is so you can have the weekend vid, then power hour, what happened on Monday, what are we looking at, and then strat attack on Tuesday to see do things follow through. So here we go SPY quarterly. Okay, so it's a 2 up on the quarter. So it's still trying to work its way back up. It's closer to being a 2 up on the quarter. You can take that out, then you get my attention, right? From a macro basis, you can take that out, then you get my attention, because then you can go after, if it takes that out, that would turn the year red, right? And you'd have a 2-2 reversal in the quarter. You're nowhere near doing that. But by that time, people would be like, it's oversold. I'm like, is it? Boom. Because if you go to that yearly, here, look at that, 2-3 years, right? That doesn't happen. Like the last 3 years was this. That's nothing, all right? Doesn't happen right, that often, but we knew about all of it, right? Last year when it started tanking, we knew they're going to take these guys out. But that was exhaustion, then it did it. And now, mother bar problems on the year. That's a bit of a problem, and as we've seen. Facebook group is the Strat. Okay, the Qsters. Inside year, handily, but bright green. You got some good continuity on that, but how are you going to take that out? That's quite the wall to climb. If we go to the quarterly, here, 2-2 quarter reversal, right here, above 296.88. Nice move, right? Much better, right? That's a lot better, ain't it? All right, and that's why when we're having that futures discussion, that where am I going to go? I'd be trading NQ long, right? Now I don't know, but you are closer to 2 and up, but you had a signal here. You see? Big difference. Then if we go to the Dow Jones Diamonds. Inside on the quarter. You got a little bit of my attention. Inside quarter, huh? Okay, so for the quarter, the diamonds either need to break below 314.97 or above 343.53. Okay, so you got some distance either way on that. And like I was saying before, then you can break it down to the 30 stocks. Who's doing that, right? So what time frame should I target for day trades and swings and leaps, etc.? Sorry, but I wasn't expecting the command energy. Well, it all depends on, what else is going on, and understanding, the magnitude, which we can get to. Small cappers, like I said, we got a lot of scans to get through here, so. Small cappers. Yeah. These guys, a little bit closer to going 2 down on the quarter. All right. Got some distance on that, but that would get my attention, because that would change the year back red. Still an inside year, like a lot of things, So there's that. And so then if we go to, say, FAS, uh-oh, a little bit different story. Red on the year. How's your quarter doing? Oof. Okay, so a little bit sideways here, but you're closer to taking this thing out. Obviously, you can watch that with the KRE. How you guys doing? Boom. Inside quarter down. Of course, there was a lot of gaps in there, so it's not as clean probably as it looks, but is what it is. And then if we go to, let's say, XLE, inside quarter over there, nowhere near taking it out, right? That's going to be a problem because we know that last year was a monster. Yield 212 Blaster. Now cooking the inside year, unfortunately, like a lot of things. Platform for what now? Okay, so if we go to trannies, inside year transports, right? We'll get to things that aren't inside year in just a second, but I just want to do the first overview here. And the quarter, okay, pokes up, comes back in, got some distance still, middle of the quarter there. So that's not helping us a lot, right? So then, who's inside on the quarter? I bet there's plenty in here. Okay, so what do we got? We got Coke. Okay, there's Dow Jones, right? And Carvana. Don't you wish you knew about the Strat up in here on the 2-2 quarter future? Okay, I talked about that in Vegas last year. So then we've got CSX. That's going to be rails. Oops. Okay. Nowhere near taking it out. So we can watch that with the trannies. You've got Roblox. A little bit closer to taking that to the upside. Right, so you're closer to a 2-1-2 reversal in Roblox in the quarter. Right, and that'd be here. But 46.05. Right, you got PayPal's. Thanks, JP, for putting that Strat in there. And the other's a lot of puking. PayPal. Ooh, give me measured move of death. Okay, so on the quarter, below 71.09 or above 88.63. Interesting. Okay. GILD. Good luck getting out of there. Chevron. So we know that XLE's inside quarter. How you gonna take that out? Walmart. That's going to be Dow Jones. 3 quarters inside of an outside bar. But you are closer to taking out the upside. I think they got earnings coming out here too. We can go to IBM. Ugh. Mother bar issue all over the place. Look at this. Look at this. Ugh. Killed. So Pepsi, inside quarter hammer. So that tells us with the Coke and the Pepsi that we can look at XLP. XLP is an inside quarter as well, potential hammer. And we'll see, during the day, you'll hear me talk about different sector rotation. Are they going into defensive names like the Utes and the XLPs? Are they dumping everything? What are they doing? Right? If we go down to ZM, there's a loser. Thanks, Kathy. Ugh. Inside quarter just kind of rotting away there. You got the Home Depot. That's also going to be the Dow. It's nowhere near taking it out. And so, like at any given day or any given week, when I showed you the scans on Friday about all the things that were taking out the highs, over time, eventually, there will be a high concentrations of things taking out quarterly highs or lows. We just don't have that, right? And that's where you get the chop shop back and forth. So you've got PSX, and that tells us refiners. And so oftentimes, nowhere near taking that out. So oftentimes when I have the list up during the day, the gappers and observations, what I'm looking at, it's important to understand what stocks are in what ETFs, or subgroups. So if I put it, let's say PSX in there, that tells me I was also going to be watching MPC, Valero because of refiners, right? So oftentimes I might just put BABA in there or whatever it is. That just tells you it's a proxy for all the Chinese stocks, right? So you can look at all of them. Like, are they buying all of China? What are they doing? Right? Sometimes I'll just type China in there. Okay, Moderna, how you doing, buddy? Yuck. All right. Okay, so we've got McDonald's. That's more down. Inside quarter, but closer to taking it out. Happy Meals for everybody. So you don't have a lot of magnitude on it, just to go into the highs, but you are much closer to taking out the highs. Goldman Sachs, huh? Okay. No, any two is actionable. It's a matter of how actionable it is. Goldman Sachs dead, Brendel in range. That ain't helping anybody. Okay. But another thing you'll hear me talk about is being a one-trick pony, right? I talk about that in the Power Hour all the time. I'm like, a lot of people come in here, I want to master all things Strat, every Strat thing. You don't have to do that, because you can always branch out, I'll have people that do nothing but trade 260 reversals back into full time frame. That's all they do, and they're fine with that. That's all they do, and right, that's their wheelhouse, and that's why when I'm talking about a lot of stocks during the day, and I've gotten this my entire career, listening to Rob is like, drinking out of a fire hose. I'm like, well, you learn to extract the information. It's like, what I'm talking about might have nothing to do with what you're doing, right? So you don't care, but you learn to extract the information, and so what I mean by that is like, that often the times I'll talk about, like, when I'm talking, if it doesn't have anything to do with you, I should be like Charlie Brown's teacher. Until you hear me say so and so to reversal and being like, that's where I'm going. Why do you like gaps? Because there's a shock to the system. Somebody's got to do something, right? Somebody's up big and somebody's down big, right? Somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to do something. It might just sit there and do nothing. Like, I had this discussion with a friend that sent me an email about when the banks are tanking. The guy is saying, well, they're going to become oversold. I'm like, when you gap more than a couple standard deviations, you're not oversold, man. You are not, right? You're starting a new series of price discovery, right? Now, if you tank $20, that's different. How things get places matters. So you also hear people talk about, if something closes over this, that's bullish. Not really. Like, it matters on how it relationship to what the next two is, but where it closes is irrelevant, because I'm like, when they're like, well, if it closes over 100, that's bullish. I'm like, well, if it gaps to 120 and closes at 101, is that bullish? What if it gaps down to 90 and rallies to 101? Is that bullish? All right. How does it get there? Right. Okay. So let's get down the list here. What else we got here? So, well, we know there's a bunch of crap in there. So there's a team, and we're nowhere near taking it out, and that's why. We'll wait to see what the concentration is as we go forward. So you'll hear me talk about uncoupling and time frames. On Tuesday, the second hour is the first possible uncoupling when we can have 4 separate openings for the month, weekday, and 60. So now we have uncoupled openings of the quarter and the year, right? Till now, those things were the same price, right? So now we uncouple from those, right? So we gain information as time goes on. Like I said, doesn't mean you don't trade for 3 months, but, we gain more information. So, anybody trying to short the NASDAQ is out of their mind, right? Out of their mind. Okay, so let's see if anybody's going inside and up on the year. That might be a tall order. Could go inside and up on the year. APD, you say? That all right? Oh, I'm sorry, that's inside year. Sorry, inside up on the ya. Wrong scan. Guess it is. Oracle. Get ye Oracle, inside year and up Momo Hammer. Get Larry. Take me out on that badass boat you got. So you got Oracle. All right. So we also know that the NASDAQ is strong. Right. You go to Dick's Sporting Goods, Momo Hammer. Hits magnitude though, but it did it. This is one of my all-time faves triangle down in here in the monthly. Oh boy. They got him good and then blast. So it hits magnitude, still good. It just okay, lattice semiconductor. What's going on here? Boom. Inside year and up lattice. Nice. Just hits magnitude. But that's what you look for. 79.22. Give me 95.50. There's your year right there. There's your year. All right. Okay. OI. OI. Inside year and up, and it's been higher. After what? Triangle the outs. Tried to go shooter counters hammer. Did not go. Goes inside on the year and then boom. OI. All right. So here, above 1794, 2271. Right? And you can see the difference of the people who are trying to fight stuff. Let's go with the winners. URI. Boom. Momo Hammer hits magnitude but comes back in. So, all right. So, it's got to be aware when you start to hit this magnitude stuff, right? Doesn't mean it can't regroup and go again. Like any time that there's full time frame counting to the upside. Okay. So the idea behind the Strat playing the break of the candles is that there are orders sitting at the top and bottom that move price one way or the other. Well, we know that there are going to be stops there because we know what they told people to do. But when you have time frame continuity, what that does is it combines that the buyers are actually aggressive in taking the offer. And then when you stop people out, you're turning sellers into buyers, which removes liquidity, which makes it harder for the algos to get stock, which makes them have to be more aggressive. And that's why you want to come back through a previous range, right? Because you know people are going to be stopped at obvious pivots and where they got in, right? And so that's why the broadening formation works, because you've got when it works, right? Do you have time frame continuity? When is this occurring, right? Is everything green? Yes. Are they uncoupled? Yes. Are the buyers taking the offer? They definitely are. Are they stopping out shorts? They are, right? And so just like any order that you've ever had where you get the slippage, if I'm a buyer, I do not want slippage, right? I hate it when I'm getting stopped out, but I hate it even worse when I'm trying to get in and I got 200 million shares to buy, right? And all these pikers keep getting stopped out and removing liquidity. I can't get any stock. Levels? No. Because if, like horizontal, never. Because if things traded horizontally, trading would be very simple, right? Like when you hear like people say support becomes resistance and resistance becomes support, that's not true. Otherwise, trading would be very simple. All you'd have to do is buy 1 cent above support and have a stop and reverse 2 cents lower. Boom, you're done. That's not how things work. So 200 million shares. It happens, man. Okay, so now it's not just a matter of the signals, it's also a matter of continuity, all right? And how much continuity do you have? So oftentimes people will get caught up on is it all red or is it all green? But it's also a matter of how red and how green is it and when is that occurring, right? So if we go to the yearly here, I want to know who's gunning on the year, right? Dollar-wise, who are my gunners? right? Okay, and who has any volume too? Mr. And that's been our Bitcoiner. Okay, not too bad. Where's the meta buddy? Meta. Meta's so beautiful. Look at last year's 2-2. When things occur matters. 2-2 reversal on the year, and remember when that kicked in, that was a earnings gapper, and that's when everybody on CNBC was trying to pick the bottom. Gets destroyed. New year. Look at that. Continuity changes and right back up. Now you got a good chance at an inside year, but full on goner, right? Ooh, look at that 2-2 reversal quarter. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Right there, right there. Right? So that's the kind of thing I want to look for. I want to look here's NVIDIA, and you can see it's all tech, Empower, right? Tezlers, AVGO, it's been all tech. We know that, all right? So we just kind of keep an eye on that. And how about FedEx? How you doing, buddy? FedEx, 212 off the quarter, right? And so we'll get to the scans at the end here a little bit closer. AI. Oof, butte. Nice 2-2 quarter you got there. Bam. So once again, coming back to the previous range. So anybody short this thing is short against all this kind of stuff. And it's getting railroaded by these guys. So if you go to the year, here, now it's trying to go 2-2 year. Here, above 32.36, you're there. That's a 2-2 reversal on the year. Stick it to them hard, right? Uncoupling means that we have 4 separate openings, right? So what we want to do, like I said, we want to gain information. So what that means is on the second hour on a Tuesday is the first time of the week that we can have a separate opening for the monthly, weekly, daily, and 60. It's the first time. Doesn't mean you don't trade, but oftentimes we pull back on a Monday and then you get that uncoupling because I want to be able to identify participation groups by price and time. What's the 60 group doing? What's the daily group doing? What's the weekly group doing? What's the monthly group doing? Are they confirming each other or do we have conflict, right? And so that's what that is, right? So we want to have as much information. So just like we're watching, like I just said, uncoupling of the quarter and the year now, right? So that's why, like, during real gunner years or during pandemics, when we had the uncoupling coming into April of the quarter, anything taken out, anything that had full time frame continuity to the upside was just going to gone. And it did. Shopee, Wayfair, Tesla, these things just gone, right? And I don't know if you read my article about the algorithm that I wrote about all that stuff, but it's a good. Because you always want to know where you want to be, right? A lot of people are like always looking around them like, here's where you want to be and why, right? So who's puking? Okay, Northrop Grumman having some issues. What's going on here? Okay, still handling inside year. Okay. ENPH, that tells me to take a look at some SOLAs. Okay. So still handling inside year, so I just want to try and get a handle of stuff that I pretty much already know. That it's been tech so far. And so then, do we have any hammer on the quarter? Well, we know Coke, HPE. Yeah. A little sideways in there. Pepsi inside AbbVie. Inside hammer. Okay. Procter. That's going to tell us the XLP as well as the Dow. All right. Not too much in there. General Mills. That's more XLP. All right. So you've seen a lot of XLP, the Campbell's soup, the diapers, right? So we're looking for that concentration. So we want to see if all of those go, right? Are they rotating into defensive XLP names, right? So you got a chance of that, right? And did I ever use moving averages? No, never made any sense. And I'll tell you why. Because it's based on the premise that price action is governed by the laws of physics, which it is not. So, and people get too focused on watch list of tickers instead of reversals and actionable signals. Yes, and so Mark, that's what I'll say to people. I'd rather have you trade the same condition than trade the same stock, right? Now I understand there's people like Arturo that only trade Tesla, but he's disciplined to know there's days he's doing nothing or weeks he's doing nothing, right? Okay. So not too much in the hammer. So it's inside down on the year. And yeah, if you can make it out Thursday afternoon, I'll give you some more testimony on the Strat. Pfizer. Inside year and down in fives. All right, that gets my attention. Okay, not too much going on there, but you do have the Pfizer. The proud defies puker. Okay. Yeah. Do we have any hammer up years? Oracle, we know. Okay. Analog devices. Tack. Boom. The 2-2-2-2 into the highs. He just got some exhaustion risk is all. Win resorts. That tells us LVS. There you go. Rev Strat year. Let's go gambling. Okay. 4. 4. 2-2. Okay. Hammer upper year. Okay, not too much. But sometimes that's all you need. Right? How about Wingstop? Get it. Okay, hits magnitude. Okay. Okay. Any rev shoot quarters? Motors. Okay. General Motors. Okay, that would do rev strat quarter if they want to puke this thing below 32.99 and then stop all these guys out. That would be nice. Okay, Mosaic. Okay, I already did the single bar rev strat. That would be Momo Shooter. You can watch that. How's IPI doing over there? Ag. Puke. Okay. So not too much there. Okay. How about shooter down year? See, when things are really moving, you'll have a high concentration in a lot of this stuff. We're not seeing that. All right? Just be aware of that. Oh, I'm so stuck here. Stuck happening here. Get. Okay. All right, Shooter McGavin. So, another thing when you do like shooter downs and stuff like that, you got to make sure it's not trading like a buck. What are you going to do with that? Maybe shorter into the dirt McGirt, but not too much here. SM Energy, what are you doing? Okay, SM Energy, we're potential 2-2 down. Watch out with the energies, so not too much. Okay. Any Rev Strat quarters? Because another thing too, for a lot of people is that not understanding that cycles will kick in, right? And you get used to a certain range. People get, and then when they finally start moving, you won't be in. You won't be in. That's when we jump in there and be like, no, now it's really going. Pricing the opposite, it doesn't make any sense. No, Dan, because it wouldn't make any money. That's just an excuse people use for why they're losing. I'm like, why would they do that? It wouldn't make any money. Stopping you out in the lows and then taking back the other way? You think they want to come after your 100 shares after chewing through 20,000 shares just to get there? That's going to make any money? Doesn't make any sense. It's just an excuse for people that don't understand broadening formation phenomenon. But oh, how they say it. Okay, what do you got here? Tezslers. Oh, yeah, they do. Tezslers. Okay. Tezslers potential 2-2 on the quarter. What are we searching for here? We don't have the search up, but they just want volume. Okay, so Rev Strats, any Rev Strats? CNX, a little tight in there. CNX would be Rev Strat quarter to the upside. Not too much in there though. And MKC, they just had earnings. Setting up E-Rev Strat. Give me some spices. And waste management. Garbage. Rev Strat quarter. Okay. So then we can go to the yearly, yesterday's highs and lows. Make sure you're at least a 2 on the year. There should be some tech. There's your AI. There's your Oracle. ON Mondelez would give you the lead there in the XLP. LVS with your win. All right. Analog devices that we can expect. A lot of tech. 2 MPC. There's your refiner. So PSX starts to come up. You got MPC. There's a lot of tight stuff. But MPC, there you go. There's 2 up on the year. Most people never touch that kind of stuff. I'm looking for a bottom picker so I get me a bounce play. Are you? Executing a trade that starts moving against you. Yes. We don't take losing trades. Get out. Get out. And stay in your winners. Get rid of your losers. Put it this way. I like to speak in analogies. All right? So you got some guy sleeping on your couch. Some loser. All right? Get that guy out of here as soon as possible, right? Then you have a winner, which is like having a hot chick, and you just ditch her. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Sitting around waiting for this guy to leave. Meanwhile, kicking Hottie out, dumbass. Okay. Now, okay, so who's taking out last year's lose? Exactly what you're doing. That's why I like speaking in analogies, because it makes sense. It's like when you're trading during the day. It's like, you know how you know you're doing it wrong? If you sold all your winners and hold bags overnight. All I got is these bags. I'm like, oh, there's a good idea. Okay. Bloodbath we know. Bank of America, that should be all the banks, yeah. Okay. FIs we know. U.S. banks, we know the banks are, so it's pretty, pronounced with stuff we already know, which is good, but, as time goes by, when we can have things move through, right? Move through the levels. Like gappers will play, but we prefer things to move through levels to stop people out, right? Get off my couch, loser. Get off my lawn. Okay, so just for fun, deal 2 goes 3 year. Who's going to give me outside year? Let him stay on the couch too long. Next thing you know, he's in your fridge and clogging the toilet. Get out of here. The longer he stays, the worse it gets. Okay, interesting here. So here's the 2 goes 3 year. Apple. Get. Give me outside year. So, all right, so Apple potential outside year. Okay, Palo Alto outside year potential. NOV, that's going to be in the energies. Okay, not too much, but Apple could do the trick. That would also help eDows, amongst other things. NOV to the downside in the energy if they want to puke that. So, all right. So, like I said, there's not too much in there, but you can see what we look for. We'll look for the high concentrations of the sectors, and then, if it's going to be a tight range, it's going to be a tight range. We got to get out of here, and that's all there is to it. And so that's why, everything is a sequence. It's a new month. It's a new quarter. Okay, how many 2s do you have up on the quarter? How many 2s do you have up on the month? Does that reconfirm every week? Does that reconfirm every day? Right? All that kind of stuff. So, so hopefully we got something out of that. We're looking to do probably another power hour on Thursday. Little testimony about where the Strat came from as we come into Resurrection Week, Holy Week. And yes, we have power hour only subscriptions. So like if you work during the day and you just want to come and get taught, so you can do that, because I know everybody can't be here all day. And so we're going to start doing that. And, I think that even if you aren't trading, even if you're just, long-term investor or looking to, that you will learn from that what you want to be looking for, right? As opposed to, it's got an EBITDA and a this, and it's coming in by sport level. No. It's 2, right? And that's what you're looking for. 2, right? And another great thing is that, unlike other communities where they're, we're gonna bounce ideas off of each other. Yeah, no. No, you can communicate with all the stratters real fast and be like, here's your group of 2s. Here's that. Here's that. So on that note, I'm going to go take the dog out because my new favorite song is Who Let the Dog Out? Me. With my new puppets. So thanks for coming out. This will be recorded, as always. And I would take advantage of all of the weekend shift recordings as well as the power hours. There's so much good stuff here for you to listen to and get you up to speed. And I'm always going to be here and do the best I can for you. So everybody have a great weekend, and thanks for coming out. All right. Have a good afternoon.